Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we're gonna go game hunting in Surugaya in Shinjuku. This is an amazing retro game store that's a little bit under the radar, and it has some amazing deals, and I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through everything I picked up. So many cool finds, and I was really happy to find this shop because so many of the famous shops like Super Potato and so on in Akihabara at this point are just so expensive. Guys, this shop was amazing. Let's get into it. So starting off here, we've got a display case where you've got a lot of really rare and expensive games like Alien Soldier and Pulse Man, for example, which go for about $570, which is just crazy. And you know what? I can't afford that. So for this video, let's dig through some stuff we can afford. Starting off with 32X games, I've always been kind of interested in a 32X. I don't have one, but I don't know, this kind of tempted me seeing these Japanese complete in-box versions of games like Doom. They're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. They're definitely affordable, but I don't know, just a little curiosity for me. Moving on to some Megadrive games, I just wanted to call out Sorcerian because this is one of my all-time favorite box arts. The painting on this is just so incredible. It kind of just makes me want to play the game. I know a little bit about it, but I've never actually played it. But guys, just look at that artwork. And the artwork on the back is amazing too. I'm such a huge fan of those old school RPG watercolors. I don't know, it's just really jaw-dropping. And then you've got this Space Harrier art, which I've never seen this super bizarro Space Harrier cover before. I'm more familiar with this one, which I guess is the classic art we're used to seeing in the US. You've got a complete in-box Lethal Enforcers controller, which is cool, and some other interesting controllers, and that's just a retro console. Okay, this is really cool. Sega Hard Historia. This is like a compendium of all of these Japanese Sega video game magazines. I really wanted it, but it's super heavy and super expensive, so I think it would probably be tricky to get back to the US. So here is Yumimi Mix Remix, which is an interesting FMV style game that was actually a port of a Mega CD game. The graphics look really, really good, and if you watch the video on YouTube, the music is amazing, so interesting little game I might want to check out at some point. Then you've got your Dreamcast keyboard, which is cool to see, and then Virtua Cop, complete in box with the game and the light gun for about $28 US. That's a really good price. You're certainly going to pay way more for that if you try to import this on eBay. It's not an expensive item. It's actually pretty affordable even on eBay, but this is definitely a nice discount. And then over here you've got another Virtua gun as well. If you just want the gun for just like 20 bucks, it's not bad at all. I think maybe like 2 years ago or so during COVID, one of my guns stopped working and I ordered another one and I ended up having to pay like $45 or so for it. So that's a comparison for you. And then a Sega Saturn stick, which is cool to see, although the Virtua stick is a much better one. All right, now we're really getting to the good stuff. They had an insane selection of Sega Saturn games, the best I've seen in Tokyo so far. I dug through these for like 2 hours. But before I go ahead and show that, we're going to continue with the rest of the store tour because I'm actually doing a separate Sega Saturn video where I go through this whole rack of games, and I actually ended up buying a ton of them. So the link for that is going to be right here, but let's continue on with the video. Alright, so this caught my eye as I was walking away from the Sega Saturn section, and I am a huge Sonic Adventure 2 fan. If you guys have seen my top 10 games of all time video, it's toward the top, and this is such a cool and unique collector's piece. And the price was not bad. It goes for quite a bit on eBay, as you can see here. But when I brought it up to the counter to purchase it, sadly the collectible coin was missing, so I ended up passing this up, but maybe I'll find it again one day because it's just such a cool piece to have if you're a fan. So here you've got a PC Engine IPS display. I thought these were rare, but it turns out they're fairly common on eBay. Below you've got your PC Engine games and your Dreamcast games, really nice selections for both. And then this N64 selection. This is Puyo Puyo Party. I've actually never seen this game before. I'd only known of Puyo Puyo Sun for the N64. You've got, of course, your Castlevania 64, which I've always wanted to play. It's one I've just never got around to, but I'm really curious about it. You've also got a nice boxed version of Custom Robo V2, which is not as big of a savings as some of the others. And this Doraemon game, which is a really cool 3D platformer if you're not familiar, kind of in the vein of like Mario 64. I don't know, I just really have always been kind of interested in this game. It looks like it would be fun to mess around with for a couple days, but I had already picked up so many Saturn games. I'm probably going to say that a lot in this video, so I decided to pass up on that one for now. And they also had this Goemon game, which is cool to see. Just a nice selection of boxed games. It's really common to see a lot of the junk sports titles at retro shops in Japan, but I don't see boxed games as much. This is Irritating Stick, one of my all-time faves, where you navigate this little, it looks like a ball, but it's supposed to be a stick around this maze while an announcer screams at you, like a game show. Really, really fun, wacky game to play with friends. And yeah, that's the N64 section. Okay, so here I saw some complete in-box sealed Virtual Boy games, which I was really surprised by. And they even had these like boxes from the manufacturer just loaded up with sealed games. I'm not super familiar with the Virtual Boy market, so I was really surprised. I looked on eBay, and as you saw in the price, they are still a really good savings. But apparently they're pretty common. I also saw this little Game Boy stereo headphones, which I don't think it's rare or anything, but it's really cool to see as a fun collector's piece. They also had this Assault Suit Lenos big box for the Switch, and I'm a huge fan of the Assault Suit Lenos series and that mech, so I thought it was cool, but not something I really wanted to pick up today. They also had this fishing game, which is really strange. I had never seen it before. I didn't know there was a fishing controller for the 3DS. I actually couldn't find it on eBay as a single item, but I found a lot of four for about $70, so not too expensive. And as you can see here, yeah, it's just got some different fishing controls and this AR mechanic where you go around and fish for these Pokemon-like creatures. It looks kind of fun, but I don't know if it's something I'd really want to sink a lot of time into, but a fun novelty nonetheless. It was nice to see they also had some Animal Crossing amiibo cards, which are becoming harder and harder to find packs for, but it's still pretty easy to find loose cards. So it's just cool to see. I have Judgement, one of my favorite PS3 games, such a unique game. If you don't know, this is an AR card game where you use a camera, the iToy camera, to look over this playmat, and as you play cards, they appear on the screen. Here we've got a nice little selection of DS games. You've got your Chibi Robo, Famicom Wars, which I've always loved the Japanese box art of. And yeah, just a really nice selection. And they did have this, it kind of just stood out to me. Jump Ultimate Stars. This is a game I have wanted since I read about it in Nintendo Power back in the day. It is like the craziest fighting game. If you're an anime fan of any anime from like 1980 to 2024, there are characters in here for you like Kenshin, One Piece, JoJo, Dragon Ball, Bleach, Yu-Gi-Oh, everything. Every character, I think there's like almost 60 playable characters, and so I picked that up for 1,500 yen. I could not pass it up. A nice GameCube selection. I was thinking about getting Doshin the Giant, but ultimately I decided against it. It's not a super expensive or rare game, but it is one I do want to play. And yeah, it had that little ding on it, which is kind of what prevented me from getting it. They also have Kuruden Squash, which is a great puzzle game. Gift Pia, which is a fun little RPG. Well, it looks fun. I've never played it, but that's a Japanese exclusive I'm also curious about. And yeah, they had a really cool selection. I didn't dig in too deep, but it looked nice for the most part. They had this Mario Party complete in box with a microphone, which is fun to see. And yeah, really nice Vita selection as well. This is one I could dig into in a future video. And this Game Boy selection, which I spent a lot of time. We're going to really go through this, and I picked up quite a few Well, just a couple of Game Boy games. I saw this hamster game, which it was hard to find footage of it online, but it looks really cute, and the graphics actually looked pretty good for a Game Boy Color game. Just a fun curiosity. Lily loves her hamster games, so I always look at them. There's this game for only 500 yen, which is like $3. This is a Pokemon clone, and you can see they've got the red version and blue version. Of course, your Kirby Block Ball, which is a fun little game. And Wizardry, this was really cool to see. This is actually quite expensive on eBay, and it's a Wizardry Gaiden game, I believe. And some other RPGs. Your Zelda, of course, you've got your Donkey Kong there. Oh, and Grandia Parallel Trippers. This is a cool one. I've always been curious about this. I actually really want to pick up Grandia in Japanese for the Saturn. I've always wanted to play that superior Japanese version of Grandia. Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Just such a nice selection. It's really rare you see this many quality titles that are complete in box that you're allowed to just freely pick through. A lot of times it gets kind of thrown in a cabinet. This is Dragon Slayer Gaiden, which looks like a cool little old school RPG. I was actually surprised it was an action RPG. It looked, well, I just assumed it would have been turn-based from the box art, but yeah, cool little action RPG. Bug Sight, this is another like Pokemon Mania kind of clone or inspired game. So you go around and collect digital monsters, and I'm pretty sure you collect and battle them. It looks kind of interesting, actually. Would be maybe curious to pick that up now that I know what it is. I didn't know at the time when I was looking through. And we've got Metabots. I've always been a fan of Metabots. I've wanted to pick up a game forever, but I've just never got around to it. So I saw these, and you know what? I decided I'm actually going to pick them up, and I picked up the oldest one I saw and the newest one I saw, which ended up being Metabots 1 and Metabots 5. And I was really happy when I got home to find that the Metabots 5 actually had the collectible card and everything. It was just super complete. So that was nice. I'm excited to give those a spin later on. We've also got some Virtual Boy games down here. So this whole section was just a mix of Game Boy Color, and Virtual Boy, and even more Virtual Boy games. I don't know, this kind of made me curious to get into Virtual Boy collecting because of how affordable it is. The system's always been curious to me, and I know now you can mod it to output to your TV and play the games in 2D, which is supposed to be a lot easier on the eyes. So yeah, this Hamtaro game looked really cool. I know the Hamtaro games on the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance are actually really, really good games. And the graphics in this one were really, really impressive. So, cool little Hamtaro game. They had a ton of the Famicom Classic series. Unfortunately, their stickers are totally covering the artwork. But this is just a fun little unique series that it's nice to see such a variety of the titles all in one place. Moving on to Game Boy Advance, you've got your basic sports titles and Kingdom Hearts. It's hard to see through the Game Boy Advance because the spines don't have anything on them besides the Game Boy Advance logo half the time. And here you've got a Kunio-kun game. And you've got some more Hamtaro. This is Rainbow Rescue. This is a really, really great game. Again, here showing just the amazing graphics and art style. If you are not aware, these were actually developed by Alpha Dream, who developed the Mario and Luigi series. So they're really quality games that I would highly recommend. And just some other titles here. Mario Party Advance. I've kind of always wanted to mess with that. And yeah, just a few different RPGs. And this one stuck out to me. This is Narikiri Dungeon, which I had never heard of before, but it looks like it's a spin-off maybe of the Tales of series. It actually looked pretty interesting. And yeah, I wasn't aware at the time, but this is one I'd probably pick up just to mess around with because it was so affordable. It was only, yeah, like 1,600 yen, so super cheap. Looks like a fun little game to mess around with. Here you've got Mega Man 03, a nice, more affordable way to play that game. And you've got Pokemon Ruby. This is actually one of the few examples today where you're not saving money by picking it up here. It's a little overpriced. Some miscellaneous games, some sports games. And as you guys can see, I'm flipping through these kind of quickly. I had spent a lot of time in the shop at this point, but if you guys want me to do a deep dive on any of the consoles that I've shown in the store, definitely let me know in a comment because I'd love to do some additional videos on this shop and have an excuse to go back. It's really, like I said, probably the best retro game shop I found in Tokyo so far. So I'm happy to do that. Mr. Driller 2, this is a game I've always wanted. I passed up on it just because I know it is very common and pretty affordable, complete, even in English. So I just skipped it for now. They had a bunch of copies of it. I know it's not rare at all, but I love Mr. Driller. It's such a fun game with such a cool, unique art style. And they had a copy of Magical Vacation, which is a cool little JRPG. And here they had this awesome wall of just Game Center CX. I'm a huge fan of Game Center CX, so that was fun to see. An amazing show if you haven't watched it. Here they had a nice selection of a combination of old magazines, art books, strategy guides. Here they had a display case showing a lot of the more desirable magazines and strategy guides. So that was cool. I think one of them that stuck out to me was that PlayStation Perfect catalog from 1994 to 98. That looked kind of cool. And here I saw this Monster Farm 5 strategy guide sticking out, and the art looked so good, and I discovered that this is a Japanese exclusive Monster Rancher game. I'm a huge Monster Rancher fan, and yeah, that's kind of the magic of hunting through these shops is learning about things like that. I had not known that game existed. Here you've got some Gundam stuff, some MOOCs, some model graphics, some Gundam Hobby Life. It was a little expensive for me at 2,000 yen, but this issue of Hobby Japan was only 100 yen, which is like 70 cents, and that goes for like $15 on eBay, so that's a great deal. I already own that issue though. Here you've got the game and music CD section. This is so hard to find. I always hunt for game music CDs in Japan, and usually book-offs have a really small selection. So here I'm just going to show some of them that I just looked through really quickly here. I was super exhausted at this point, and I want to go back and do a deep dive. Again, let me know if you guys would love to see a video where I just deep dive exclusively for Japanese video game soundtracks. That would be super fun to do. And last but not least, we have the Etrian Odyssey 5 soundtrack, an incredible soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro, one of my favorites on the 3DS. Really wanted to pick this up, but my cart was so full at this point, I just had to pass it up. Alright you guys, so that's about going to do it, but before I go, I'm going to share some additional footage with you of some cool items that I haven't shared yet. And guys, let me know what you think of this shop. Would you buy stuff here? Was there stuff I skipped over that really interested you? There's so many consoles that I did not dig into. PS1, PS2, PC Engine, which by the way, I want to pick up a PC Engine before I leave Japan. PSP. There was just so much stuff I could do a deep dive on, so definitely leave a comment and let me know anything at all you would love to see a deep dive on. I am basically asking for an excuse to go back to this store and do some more game hunting. So yeah, this shop is proof that you can still get great deals retro game hunting in Tokyo. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, if you could please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, I would really, really appreciate it. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!